Australian Bitcoin podcast, presented by HardBlock, Australia's first Bitcoin-only exchange.
Hello and welcome to the Australian Bitcoin podcast. My name is Daniel Wilczynski. I'm the founder of HardBlock, and with me we have Mike, our product manager. How are you, Mike? Sorry, not product manager. I gave you the wrong title. Operations manager.
Operations manager.
Change
Operations
jobs.
managers do everything anyway, so
yeah, exactly.
You can call me whatever you want.
Cool. Anyway, we've got, as usual, we have a lot of news to go through. So today is the 3rd of March, 2025. We've got a few things to cover, some hacks and some more interesting news from America. But before that, I will just give a summary of the price. So it's been pretty volatile in the last 2 weeks. Before that, it's been kind of pretty steady for a few months, sitting around that kind of 100,000 US mark. But now around... So it started off 2 weeks in middle of February. The price was around 96,000 US. And then it started falling. Around 28th of February, it was 80,000 US. So a reasonably significant jump from 96 to 80,000, like a downwards, not really jump, downwards fall. And so the sentiment was pretty negative at that point, I felt. And, people were thinking, is the bull market over? I saw a lot of that on Twitter, like, oh, is it over and stuff like that. I'm not sure if you saw that, Mike.
Yeah, a lot of despair.
Yeah, exactly. People were thinking, and, it's kind of like I can see the thinking because, if you look at, for example, previous bull markets, it should go higher, and we would expect I like something the rainbow chart. So according to the rainbow chart, we're still pretty low, but some people saying, well, maybe it's maybe it's becoming less volatile when the peaks went as high. Like in the previous peak, like 3 years ago, it didn't quite go as high as many people thought. So maybe some people were thinking like, oh, is this the end of a bull market or not?
Yeah, a lot of people questioning whether the in this cycle, are we seeing a break away from the traditional 4-year cycles that we've been seeing?
Exactly.
Still yet to be seen.
Yeah, still undecided. So yeah, still undecided. But yeah, it dropped like to around 80,000. Part of that was the ByBit hack, which we discussed, which kind of probably drove price downwards. And that was the situation up to about 24 hours ago. And just overnight, like today, President Trump and his administration released news about the strategic crypto reserve, and it jumped from around that $85,000 mark to around $93,000, where it is now. So basically, at the end of after that volatility, after 2 weeks, basically we're back to where we started. So that's kind of a summary of the price action. Again, where we'll go from now, I don't know, we'll see. But like historically, we're still pretty, we're still not that high, like historically compared to previous like cycles. Like on the rainbow chart, we're still in like buy and accumulate territory. But again, maybe things are different. But yeah, that's the price. And now we'll get on to the news. Mike, you've got some headlines that you take us through. So what's the news?
Sure. So, as you mentioned just then, probably the biggest news that just came out in the last day or so is the announcement from the Trump administration, the introduction of a strategic crypto reserve. A bit disappointing that it's not a strategic Bitcoin reserve, as was kind of hinted at previously when he showed up to Bitcoin 2024 conference, and he was talking to the Bitcoiners there and mentioned potential around a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That has now been confirmed. But he's including some altcoins in the mix. So specifically, that's XRP, Solana, Cardano, and Ethereum, as well as Bitcoin. So a little bit disappointing there, but shouldn't be surprising considering he launched his own altcoin, meme coin, Trump coin, around his inauguration, and the players that he's put into positions of power, such as the crypto czar David Sachs, they're altcoiners. They're not Bitcoiners at heart, and so it shouldn't be surprising to us. Still disappointing though. Um, and yeah, so that's caused a recovery in the market. Obviously, as Dan mentioned, the price took a big hit towards the end of Feb off the back of the hack that we'll talk about a bit later. Um, and then, yeah, off the back of this announcement, has bounced the price right back up to around 93K US. And so we'll see what it looks like. The sort of follow on is on March 7th is that there's their first White House, I don't know what they're calling it, forum where they're discussing how it would actually work. So we're kind of just going to be sitting on the headlines until then. And then we'll find out some more details. But that's news that's come out in the last day or so. Strategic crypto reserves. So what are your first thoughts on that when that came across your desk? Oh, you've muted yourself, mate.
Sorry. So yeah, people were saying strategic shitcoin reserve, right? When it came out.
I was trying to be a bit tactful with
Yeah.
my presentation, but yes, it is a shitcoin reserve.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just reporting the news. That's what people. Everybody can make up their own mind. Yeah, Bukele from El Salvador is still our favorite world leader in Bitcoin. But I'll just read the announcement. Should I read? I'll read the announcement from Trump, what he posted.
Yeah, go for it.
So, a US crypto reserve will elevate this critical industry after years of corrupt attacks by the Biden administration, which is why my executive order on digital assets directed the presidential working group to move forward on a crypto strategic reserve that includes XRP, SOL, and ADA. I will make sure the US is the crypto capital of the world. We are making America great again. And then he follows on with another post. And obviously, Bitcoin and ETH as other valuable cryptocurrency will be the heart of the reserve. I also love Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah, so it's a bit concerning, right? I'm sure a lot of people sort of when they saw that first announcement where it didn't even mention Bitcoin and Ethereum, it just mentioned XRP, Solana, and Cardano. A lot of people would have read that and be like, okay, but you're missing the most important one, most important two, arguably. And he's put XRP first, which is, if you've had a look at that, it's a very scammy coin that's out there, and that's the headline coin that he's used. So it's good that he at least followed it up with the second post, but
Yeah.
a little bit of a concern.
I'm pretty sure somebody like told him President Trump.
Yeah.
You forgot to mention Bitcoin. He's like, okay, I'll make another post. But I'm pretty sure like Bitcoin would be. He did say Bitcoin and Ethereum would be at the head. I'm pretty sure Bitcoin would be the highest allocation for it. Yeah, like for me, it's again like that's why you don't want government making decision, and government in some ways like government's not the expert in cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. That's my opinion, right? And it's better if we just in some ways like I think it's a good that the attitude towards cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is positive. Like previously a lot of in the previous administration in America, like the attitude was kind of hostile. Here at least the attitude is open-minded. So if the heart is in the right place in a way, except they're not really knowledgeable about it, and I think they're doing some silly things. But the heart is in the right place in terms of they're not hostile. But yeah, I just feel like the best thing, honestly, would be like for the government or in Australia also just kind of get out of the way. Don't put too many complicated rules and let people invest. Let the market choose. And because the government, it's not really the government's responsibility. Like the government doesn't know should we buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, and why should they know that? And why should they be picking like making these decisions? In some ways, it's better like just like lower taxes That's my opinion. Like lower taxes, make it easy. Like get rid of capital gains tax if you on Bitcoin if you can, and just let people choose and invest what they want to, and let the market decide. And the market would eventually choose Bitcoin. That's what I believe.
Sure. But is the comparison here that, because in olden times governments would sit on a reserve of gold, is the classic, a nation state would sit on a reserve of gold to fund its activities, and hoard it all. And this strategic crypto reserve is the modern equivalent of that. Um, and so, maybe people should have a say in what their government does invest in. And it's hard to say how much of this is actually influenced by individuals, whether it be individual users of crypto, individual Americans that are into crypto, or is it more just this tech bro conglomerate that's formed around Trump that is nudging him in down this pathway? It's hard to say if it
Yeah.
is sort of grassroots or it is just about these tech bro
Well,
influencers
the other
around
thing
him.
is like we'll do that crypto council and we'll find out more details there. Like honestly, I feel a lot of it is fun to discuss, but I think in actual real, what's going to end up happening in reality is that this strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's not going to be very big anyway. It's not going to be like a significant thing. So in many ways, like what we're discussing is that's my belief. Like at the end of the day, the American government is trying to cut, like it's heavily in debt. It's trying to like find savings. Like it can't pay for everything it's supposed to pay for. It's not going to invest huge sums in some strategic Bitcoin reserve. Would be more like like really it's going to be some, like big compared to what we own like as individuals, but in the grander scheme of things it's going to be pretty small kind of holding, and where we're dipping their feet in the water and just trying to, it's not going to be any kind of significant reserve. That's what I believe, because the US government doesn't have the money for it. And but yeah, like
Yeah.
but so but yeah, what you said, it's like about like comparing to like a gold reserve. Yeah, I think that would be ideal, and that's why Bukaleli, like he saw that, and he's like right up there, kind of as a visionary. So like he's
Mm.
like amazing. But I think, I guess I would say like why he gets like I plus, maybe like, or let's say I minus, and like Trump maybe gets like a B or something. Like at
Mm.
least we're very positive, but we're doing some stuff wrong. But at least we're like they have a
Sure.
positive attitude.
Yeah, maybe he gets a B for now, but I'm an eternal pessimist on these sorts of things, and I'm wondering, 6 months down the track, maybe we'll be talking about the greatest rug pull of all time that the U.S. government and the tech bros have pulled on crypto investors. They've named these five tokens, and are they setting themselves up for the biggest rug pull in
Yeah.
history, where
Well, I
where
don't
all the
think we're
tech
trying.
bros have already got their positions in these
Yeah, well,
tokens?
I don't think, yeah, like, but see, that's like the kind of problem with it. I don't think they're trying to do that. I don't think they're trying to enrich themselves, but like, at the end of the day, like, eventually it would come to that. Because if the government's like has this kind of crypto allocation, then which assets do they choose? And it opens up like this kind of room for corruption. If they're like, where even if it's not happening now, like at some point, like where the government starts buying this coin because some the politicians who make these decisions, you know, hold that coin, and it just like, I think it's really like it's a bad idea for them to get involved. It's like they can only damage the reputation. It's kind of like in Argentina, we discussed last week, where the guy that president got in Milei got involved, and it was a scam coin, and he's just like
Yeah.
it damaged his political reputation. And like we're gonna get in
Mm.
that, we're gonna get involved with these scam coins and buying them, and it's gonna be, well, they'll buy some coin and which gets rug pulled, and then people blaming. It's just like, yeah, in some ways it's kind of like you watch it and it's kind of like you can see a potential disaster. Like you hope it doesn't, but it's like you
Yeah.
hope this doesn't end up being like a train wreck and where things blow up and it just creates bad press.
Well, it's almost a way of like crowdfunding a pathway for it to solve a little bit of its debt problem. And in the grand context of things, it'll probably only move it on a few percentage points. But they've basically now got these 5 tokens that are, or 4 of them, 4 shitcoins that are ultimately run by American companies, with various interests in these tokens held by the crypto bros that have made their way into the Trump administration. They've now effectively got vehicles to crowdfund retail investment worldwide into these tokens, which they can then internally centrally control and siphon funds out. Probably won't be to actually solve their debt problem, but it will definitely make a bunch of these tech bros rich along the way. That's my general read on things.
Okay.
Very pessimistic
Okay.
take, but we'll see how it
Yeah.
unfolds.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, should we talk about the ByBit hack?
Yeah, so let's move on to the what is being called the one of the largest thefts in history. Definitely one of the largest thefts of cryptocurrency in history. But on paper, it is also technically the largest theft in history, recorded theft. So for anyone that's not up on the up and up, cryptocurrency exchange ByBit, based out of Dubai, has disclosed that it's been a victim of a 1.5 billion US dollar hack, where one of its cold storage wallets used to move funds around, but in this case Ethereum, was compromised and cleaned out of $1.5 billion worth of Ethereum. So that happened on the 22nd of Feb, and that coincides with the significant price action, the dip in the Bitcoin price, and many crypto prices dropped all around the same time off the back of that news. For comparison, the Mt. Gox hack, which has affected a lot of people and is still sort of being worked through today, that was a $500 million hack, whereas this one is $1.5 billion, so 3 times as large. The exchange has come out; they've been fairly transparent. They've disclosed it. The CEO has been very active on Twitter. He's been appearing on podcasts and speaking openly about what's going on. They have said that they are able to cover the loss. The reserves are 1-to-1 backed, which so far seems to be the case. They haven't imploded completely off the back of this news.
Yeah, I think they also
So,
got a loan from Binance, like some kind of bridging loan
mm,
from Binance.
yeah. So far they're holding things together, and but yeah, biggest theft in history, biggest crypto hack in history. Um, Things like this have happened before. They'll undoubtedly happen again. Um, but yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, well, they keep on happening, they will happen, and that's why I think like holding it in self custody wallets, you always
Yep.
is the best. Like, hopefully, they'll be made whole. The customers will be like not lose, but hopefully, but there's always that risk, and there's plenty of situations where customers lost. So holding it in self custody in some hardware wallet or something like that is probably the best way.
Mm. Yes, take it off the exchanges. Obviously, is your best defense of hacks like this, because you are end of the day, if your coins are on an exchange, you're trusting them to take care of them. And as you can see in this case, sometimes things go wrong, and so you're better off taking the steps to bring it into self custody, protect your coins that way.
But like you said, it's pretty big, like $1.5 billion. But what you mentioned, like that Mount Gox was 500 million,
Yep.
and it kind of makes me think, like, how big was like Mount Gox was huge when you think about it. Like, okay, I get it. So it's like one third of this hack, 500 million compared to 1.5 billion. So one third, but that was like 11 years ago or something, and like
Mm.
I think Bitcoin, like in market cap, I don't know, it would have been like 50 or 100 times smaller. And like, but the actual hack was like, so in relative terms, the Mt. Gox hack was huge. Like, do you
Yes.
know what I'm saying? Like, in relative terms, like that was huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and because of the nature of the market at that time, them being really the only exchange,
Yeah.
the only large exchange at that time, meant that it was just such a dire hit to the market. In theory, it can't really get to that scale again at this point because things have spread out a bit in terms of there's no monolithic exchange that could get wrecked in such a way that it wipes out so many funds. So, but you're right. The proportionality is much different compared to the ByBit hack today.
Yeah. So I done some research on how this hack occurred. So I will share my understanding of what happened. So ByBit, it's like a cryptocurrency shitcoin type exchange, and basically, so what happened is basically we were moving funds from the cold storage, like deep code storage wallet, into their hot wallet, and during that process of moving funds, voice funds that we were moving got stolen. And the way that happened is, from my understanding, is when the funds in cold storage was like a multi-signature setup. We're moving Ethereum funds from the hot wallet to cold wallet to a hot wallet, and the Ethereum was in a multi-signature setup, and they were sending the funds, but the hacker to what was supposed to be the address, the hot wallet address, but the hacker managed to change the kind of the interface that they were seeing. So they thought they were seeing it sending the money to their address, but they were actually sending it somewhere else to a hacker's address. So they were signing the signature, and they looked kind of as they're signing, okay, it's going to the correct place, but the actual interface, that wasn't true. They were signing a different transaction. This transaction was signed because they had hardware devices over multi-signature entities, but they were signing a different transaction than the one they were seeing. And how what happened was it's believed that the hackers, well, they through social hacking, they compromised one of the developers who was working within the organization managing those kind of wallets, and they managed to gain access to the servers where where the code is located, and they edited the code. So then when the multi-signature was being displayed, the transaction, because the code on the server was modified, the kind of guardians of that wallet, that multi-signature entities, they weren't seeing the correct transaction. So that's kind of a summary of roughly of how it happened. And but some interesting bits is like one of the things that made it possible is normally, like, I guess you've used hardware wallets, right, Mike? And when you normally use it, especially if you have like normally when you use it with Bitcoin, you're sending to an address, and all hardware wallets have like a little screen or display. So that's why you're actually supposed to check, like, you're sending it, that the address on the actual display on the screen of your hardware device matches the address that you're supposed to be sending it to, right? It usually asks you to confirm, right? Is my explanation, are you following this, or is this kind of
Yep.
okay?
So
Yeah,
you just
so
described,
basically,
you're matching obviously when you're doing a multi-sig transaction, you can see the partially signed Bitcoin transaction, or I assume there's an equivalent in Ethereum. I've never done a
something
Ethereum
like that,
transaction, so
yeah.
not really sure there. But yes, you then verify it when you're actually loaded into your hardware wallet to sign the transaction. You can verify the
You
address
can
is
you can see the address where you're checking, and you check that the address where you're sending it on your device matches where you're supposed to be sending it to. But with like basically, and you can do that in Bitcoin, works always in Bitcoin, but in Ethereum, in multisig, you can't do that. So basically, and the reason for that, because of the added complexity, because it's like a smart contract, the wallet doesn't really know what's happening in the smart contract, so it can't actually verify it. So that was like a big problem. So when they were signing it, they were just kind of blind signing it. They were signing it from what was displayed on their computer screens, but they couldn't verify it on their hardware device like they would with Bitcoin, because of the high complexity of a smart contract.
So it kind of shows the weakness of Ethereum, right? And something that's often used as a gotcha when crypto bros are discussing Bitcoin and its supposed technical limitations. You can see why Bitcoin has been left so, strictly robust in its simple setup and feature set, such that cases like this just can't happen. Where
exactly. That's my point. Yeah, exactly. Like, people don't understand, but like the simplicity of Bitcoin, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Like it's purposely done that for extra security and safety, like the saying is, complexity is the enemy of security.
Yes.
So like it's made like that on purpose. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Another interesting kind of thing about this is, so if the hackers, they stole, it's believed to be North Korean hackers, they stole that huge amount of Ethereum. It was mostly Ethereum, and I don't know if you know this, but they immediately went on decentralized exchanges to convert it into Bitcoin. Did you know that? Yeah. Yes. So again, it shows you like the hackers know where
they know where they actually want the money to be.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, because I mean, and it makes sense because it has happened before with Ethereum. Like because it's less decentralized, and they have had cases where they actually reversed the transaction history, like
back in the
Ethereum
DAO hack,
and
the split
things
to
like
Ethereum
that.
and Ethereum Classic. Yeah, and I've seen there's been calls to discuss potentially doing doing that again, roll back the blockchain before before this hack.
And it's kind of sort of complicated now because a lot of it has been, for that reason, I think, that they converted into Bitcoin. So now somebody paid for it. So if you roll it back, but somebody else got paid, like there was an innocent user on the other end of a trade who bought that Ethereum from the hackers. They didn't know that they were hackers. They just bought Ethereum for their Bitcoin. So now if you reverse it, like how do you compensate? It doesn't matter if you reverse it because the actual hackers don't have Ethereum anymore. They have Bitcoin, and you can't reverse Bitcoin. So if you reverse it, well, the hackers don't care anymore. They've got Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I'm sure a smart, economically minded person could explain the market dynamics behind rolling back a blockchain to correct a hack where the funds have already been siphoned off into a different market. How do the dynamics work? I'm sure someone will put out a treatise on that. But you mentioned something in there that I didn't introduce in my original spiel on the topic, which is the FBI has come out in the last few days claiming that it was North Korean hackers, specifically the Lazarus Group, behind this hack. And I do find it interesting that the FBI is so quick to jump in. They've made big public statements asking for help in investigating this issue. I do find it interesting that they've jumped so quickly and been so transparent. It's like normally I would have thought with the way that mainstream institutions are acting towards crypto as they would have been like, bad luck, you are playing around with your altcoins, your shitcoins, your digital currencies, you got burned, bad luck, you should have been sticking to the US dollar or something. It's interesting that they're jumping in and being so involved in this. And, I'm having some thoughts about that. And I'm even like, was it really North Korea? Because it could have been anyone. And, North Korea, they don't have a crazy amount of resources to throw it at superfluous activities. And obviously, crypto hacks are a good source of revenue for that regime. But at the same time, I wouldn't expect North Korea to be particularly good. I would have thought a nation like China or the US would be the number one for hacking activity like this. So I am always a little bit skeptical. It's like, did they really do it? Sure, it wasn't the US.
It's funny. I'll be honest. I had actually the same thought, and I would say, like, I believe it's probably 80%. I would say it was probably North Korea, but it's
Mm.
like people just, well, why was it? Because the FBI said it, and okay, and the FBI like, oh yeah, they're like, I'm sure they always tell the truth. Like, for all we know, it was maybe the FBI like stole it themselves, and then they just
Well,
blind the North
here's
Koreans.
the ultimate conspiracy. The hack happens. 1.5 billion of Ethereum is drained out of the wallet. I think it's 400,000 Ethereum is drained out. Um, and let's say it was the US, some hacking group with ties to the US. Then the US announces their strategic crypto reserve, including Ethereum.
But
Ethereum price pumps, continues to pump
yeah,
as everyone's piling in off the back of this news, and then they can start selling off their stack of stolen Ethereum.
yeah. I mean, yeah, like yeah, it's a funny thought. Like to be honest, I do believe it was probably, I would say like 85% chance it was probably North Korea, but I did
Mm,
have that same thought. But like because when you get hacked, it's hard to actually know. Like they don't know. Obviously they got hacked. They didn't know they were getting hacked, and it's like somebody put malware on their like computer, but it's like it's code. Like how like code doesn't have a nationality. Like
mm,
malware, it's like how do you know? Probably the easiest way is to see where the money is going, but it went into Bitcoin, and like apparently what I read is they expect that it's going to be cashed out, but they're going to put it through mixers,
yeah.
supposedly like mixers in Bitcoin, and then cash it out like in OTC for like Chinese yuan and stuff like that to fund like
Mm,
the operations. So probably if you can trace where it's going, like yes, maybe that. But again, it's going through mixes. Like it's
mm.
that's why they go through different currencies and go through mixes and like so it's actually hard. It's not an easy thing when people say like, oh, somebody got hacked and they blame a country. Like
Yeah,
one
it's
thing to be aware of, it's not easy to tell.
mm,
Like if you're a hacker, how do you know where the hackers came from? It's not easy
yes.
like to tell that.
And there's definitely this air of plausible deniability in all these hacking cases because cybersecurity threats and attacks are happening all the time, and media organizations and intelligence agencies are very quick to say, "Oh, the attacker is China. China's hacking us. Such and such countries hacking us." Well, okay. Well, why aren't we treating that as a declaration of war? Why aren't we treating this more seriously and then leveraging massive sanctions against those countries that are supposedly cyber attacking us and our businesses and our citizens and scamming our citizens? Okay, well, what are we going to do about it? They don't actually do anything about it, but they say, "Oh, we think it's China." So, but then they never take any actions. And I guess it's as you say, they can make claims, but it's still not provable beyond pale of a doubt, because
Yeah,
it's through proxies, it's through VPNs, it's through
exactly.
mixes, and so you can't really paint a definitive picture. So that's why, yeah, it is good to view a bit like the FBI's accusation that is North Korean hackers with a slight air of skepticism. It
Yeah.
is interesting if it was North Korea. I was just looking at their GDP figures. So North Korean their economy, their GDP is about 23 billion US dollars per year. So we're saying
Oh
that in
wow,
this one
that's low.
hack, they've got a 6.5% boost to their economy just off this one little hack. So it is a neat little money spinner for a despotic regime. So maybe it is worth them pumping all their resources into these hacking groups and making sure they can keep bringing in some revenue for them.
Wow, you're right. It's yeah, that's pretty low. Like, is that correct?
Yeah,
35.
maybe double check
Yeah,
that. Fact check me.
yeah. Hold on, I'm just gonna.
While you're looking that up, the other interesting thing that's come off this story is the CEO has declared a war against Lazarus Group, so the hacking group supposedly behind it, and they've set up a bounty website. Lazarus Bounty is the website, lazarusbounty.com. And so it's quite interesting how they're going about this. They're literally posting like a leaderboard and open sourcing their information of what's happened, and they're kind of just doing an open call for exchanges and individuals and tracking companies to just help track the Ethereum that's been drained from this exchange and offering funds in exchange for information or freezing accounts and tracking things down. So it is quite interesting. I think it's going to be a good case study on what the best course of action is for institutions that get hit with such attacks. It's he's been the CEO and the company has been very transparent, very upfront, and then they're doing this crowdsourcing method and offering real rewards and fame for people to help them out. So I think it's going to turn into a bit of a case study on what to do if you are unfortunately the victim of such an attack.
Yeah, by the way, you're correct. Like the GDP of North Korea is apparently 30 billion, which would mean this is like 30 billion. So, and the hack was 1.5 billion. That'd be like 7% of our GDP. That'd probably be like cover the entire government budget for a year or something.
Yeah.
Like, so that's pretty crazy.
So old mate Kim Jong is going to be asking for a few more of those, please. Keep his regime
Yeah.
going for a little bit longer.
Anyway, do you have any other news for?
Yeah, we
for
can go through a
tonight?
few more topics. So just to tie that off, bit of a sobering statistic in terms of overall losses from hacks and scams. It is increasing. We've gone from 1.8 billion in hacked losses in 2023 from crypto exchanges and crypto accounts. 2024 was 2.2 billion. And then in 2025, we've already seen a 1.5 billion hit. So we're already on track to smash the record for crypto losses through hacks and exploits and scams. So bit of a sobering statistic there, and it just serves as a reminder for all of us to take steps to protect yourself. Take the time to check, make sure you're happy with your setup and your devices and your backups. Pull your coins off exchanges. Do that due diligence now before you unfortunately get wrapped up in some kind of attack. Because even massive exchanges like ByBit, they've got 60 million customers. They'll have tons of employees, tons of professionals, and they'll still make mistakes like this. So if it can happen to them, it can happen to anyone. So take steps to protect yourself, check your devices, and check your setup. Okay, let's talk about some Australian topics. We've got a few things happening in Australia coming soon. We've got Bitcoin Alive coming up this weekend, which is going to be great. So that's for anyone that doesn't know, that's a Bitcoin-focused conference happening in Sydney. Happens at the UNSW campus at the Roundhouse. That's this coming Saturday. So that's going to be good. The HardBlock team is going to make an appearance there. There's going to be lots of good speakers, lots of good activity there. So looking forward to meeting anyone listening now that's going to be coming to that conference, and hopefully it's a good one.
Yep. Yeah. Looking forward to it. A few days to go.
Sweet. The other thing that's coming up in Australia is a good old election. It's expected to be called in May this year, federal election. And there's been some surveys done. There was a recent YouGov poll that talked to some crypto people to see their sentiment regarding the upcoming election. So there was a YouGov poll that suggested that around 2 million Australians could form a pro-crypto voting bloc that various campaigners could tap into and try to court as part of their campaigns. Because, Australia is one of the biggest countries per capita for people to own crypto. And as more and more people are pouring their superannuation funds and decent proportions of their net worth into crypto, they are going to be open to candidates that are more friendly to crypto and with better policies and better tax arrangements for investors in crypto. So we may see that become a point of concern amongst campaigners in this upcoming election. And that poll, the YouGov survey, said that 59% of current crypto investors are more likely to vote for a candidate that is pro-crypto this election. So there are a lot of people already thinking down this. But as it stands, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only party that's come out with positive stances on crypto are the Libertarian Party. I can't think of any other party that has had any positive things to say about crypto other than them. Do you know of any differences there?
Yeah, I believe you're correct. As far as I know, Libertarian Party has one who have kind of said explicitly positive pro Bitcoin stuff. IBIV, Australian Bitcoin industry body, like usually before in the previous election, and they went through and asked different politicians, different up for election, in what their stance was on Bitcoin, and they published those results. I believe they're going to do that again this year. So, if you go on IBIB website, at some point that will probably be public. We'll let you guys know
Okay.
when that happens, and then you can look at the individual kind of politicians up for election and see what their stance is.
Mm. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, I guess one thing is, it's not specifically Bitcoin only, but like the Labour Party has made some talk about introducing a capital gains tax on unrealized gains, which is pretty crazy. Like, and
Mm.
initially supposed to be for super, a bit for, I think, like higher values of super, I think above 2 million. But obviously that's not like indexed to inflation. So, and usually the way these things start, it's like first starts off and then expands to like, target everybody. But yeah, like, and that would be bad for a lot of people. It's pretty crazy. Like
Mm.
for unrealized gains, we're gonna
Mm.
tax that, but it'd be bad for people holding Bitcoin.
Mm. It's such
So
an insane policy when you think about it. Like,
yeah,
I obviously don't understand the detail, but I'm just imagining a scenario where even if you're not a Bitcoin investor, you just invested in some random shitcoin, meme coin, whatever. It goes to the
or even just
moon.
like other assets, like
Yeah, or
even
any
shares
asset.
or whatever, and like they go up and you have to pay tax because they go up in value.
Yeah, and then
And
and then it goes
yeah,
through an off cycle and it crashes and you've already paid your tax and then you
yeah,
realize it at a loss. How does that come
exactly.
out in the wash? I think it's
Just
just going to
because
end up in a lot of
if it
unhappy
goes up,
people.
things are volatile, they go up 50%, and like when you pay tax but when it goes down 50%, it's just like silly. But the other thing, what people like, you know the capital gains tax is such an unfair tax, because if you pair it with like money printing and inflation, because you pay tax, your asset goes up, but often it's not going up. Like, if you own a house and people think like, oh, yeah, my house went up 20% in the past 2 years. Well, okay, but try selling your house and buying another house. All the other houses went up 20% either. Like, so your house didn't really go up. It just the value of the money went down.
Hmm.
But if you're selling your like that, if you're selling that, okay, a house gets this exemption if it's like the place you're living in. But basically what I'm saying is, you sell that and you have to pay capital gains tax. I'm just talking about normal capital gains tax, like, because it went up but it didn't really go up. It's just the value of the money went down. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
It's like, so it's like when you pair like capital gains compared with money printing and inflation, it's just theft of assets, because things go
Mm.
up in nominal value but they don't go up in real value, but you have to pay tax. Like, they didn't really go up, you know yeah, anyway, just
Yeah,
yeah,
so it's dangerous policy, and the disappointing thing is I don't think many of the voting public are aware of the implications of this. The average, um, you know, quote unquote innocent Labor voter, left wing voter might look at proposals like that and be like, "Oh, great, yep, tax the rich, tax the rich," and they'll think nothing of it, and they'll vote accordingly, and then they'll get stung by it years down the track when they actually, getting understanding of the economics and of the sheer insanity of such policy. So I don't have much faith in people squaring that circle and coming to that realization until they've already been stung a few times. So
yeah.
not looking good.
Unfortunately, people don't realize that. Like, what it does is like rich. I mean, most of the taxes, most of our services are paid for by rich individuals, and so and companies. That's who pays most of the taxes. But if you tax them too high, like there just won't be incentive for them to work, and there'll be incentive for them to leave. I mean, there's already, like, I know heaps of Australians who left Australia because of their regulations and taxes. And if they stayed in here, they would have been paying, if there were lower taxes, there'd be lower taxes, but they would have stayed in here. Okay, let's say Stefan Livera, like, he's probably pretty wealthy. He has a successful podcast. He would have been paying heaps of taxes, but now he went and left. And like, so we just lost a high paying taxpayer,
Yep.
and like,
Who could have started businesses, who
and
could have
he's
made
one, but there's,
investments. Yeah.
I mean, well, he would have been staying here and paying taxes, and he is paying taxes. When he goes to Dubai still has taxes on businesses, but it has lower taxes. So now, like, Australia has zero, and Dubai has, okay, because they
Well,
have
I
some.
believe Dubai's policy is just it's a sales tax, right? Which is a strategy of a lot of these states are following, which is they abolish their income tax, their capital gains tax, or bring it to a very, very minimal amount, and just impose hefty sales taxes and corporate taxes.
Yeah, something like that. But they also have,
Yeah.
like, they have corporate taxes. So, like, so for example, like, as an example, like Stefan Livera, I just mentioned that because he's somebody we kind of know. Like, I'm sure he has a company. His podcast is a company. So if the company still pays tax in Dubai, just a smaller tax, right? Yeah.
So I think what will come from that is, people talk about the concept of the Bitcoin citadels, and people have this sort of fantasy where they'll be going to some desert oasis and setting up their libertarian stronghold in the middle of nowhere. But how it's probably going to work in practicality is certain countries are going to break away with very, very friendly sentiment towards Bitcoiners and investment and with favorable capital gains arrangements. El Salvador is an obvious example. Czech Republic or Czechia, whatever that country's called
Sure.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're doing a similar thing, abolishing their crypto capital gains tax on crypto held for over 3 years. And I think we'll start to see these countries are literally what forms these citadels. It's not a something that you can spin off in a small sliver of a country. Literally, these whole countries will eventually turn into these economic miracles based off their policy that they're writing now. Whereas countries like Australia or the wider EU or other countries that are taking a much more harsh stance on these sorts of things are just going to be squeezing productive people out of those countries, and they're just going to move elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I guess we kind of around the 50-minute mark. Do you have any last
Yeah, I might just do.
story?
I've got two more quick stories
Okay.
to
Yeah.
run through really
Yeah.
quick. One that I just thought was a bit funny.
Mm.
So on the 18th of February, Australian police found what they're calling Aladdin's cave of stolen Bitcoin ATMs and Pokemon cards. So there's a crime ring that was uncovered in Australia that was hoarding cryptocurrency ATMs, as well as Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and other strange collectible assets like that. But it's interesting that they've been stealing the entire crypto ATM. It's not like they're breaking them open or hacking them or anything. They're literally stealing the entire unit and having them in their stash. But it's interesting because it got me reading about crypto ATMs in Australia. What I didn't realize is Australia now has the third highest number of crypto ATMs in the world. We're up to 1,462 crypto ATMs, which I didn't realize because I must admit, I've only come across one in my journeys around South Australia. But supposedly we have 1,462
In South Australia?
Australia wide.
Okay.
But yeah, interesting that criminals are lifting the entire units and stealing the entire units. I don't know if they think that the unit itself is full of Bitcoin or something like that.
It must have cash, right? Because people like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yes. But who knows how much cash? I wouldn't expect much, but could be wrong. Could be very lucrative. Um, Other topics that I thought were quite interesting were El Salvador has signed a $1.4 billion loan from the IMF which curbs their enthusiasm for Bitcoin as part of the contract. So it'll remain to be seen how that plays out in practice, whether Bukele continues his positive sentiment towards Bitcoin. It sounds like they do want to continue the general trend of being positive towards Bitcoin. But unfortunately, the terms of this loan see them doing things like rolling back the purchasing of Bitcoin and other things. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So I'm sure we'll see some news stories coming out of that over the next month or so as that policy starts to move through the country. I mean, there's plenty of other stories happening, but I think we've covered enough today. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we jump off?
That's it. I think that's good for today. So I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll probably recap Bitcoin Alive and bring you some more Bitcoin news. I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and I will talk to you later, Mike.
Great. No worries. Thanks, Daniel.
Australian Bitcoin podcast, presented by HardBlock, Australia's first Bitcoin-only exchange.